Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and as requested, today we'll be exploring Leigh Whannel's The Invisible Man, starring the talented Elisabeth Moss, Aldis Hodge, Harriet Dyer, Michael Dorman, and Oliver Jackson-Cohen as a titular character. We all know how annoying faceless online trolls can be, using their anonymity as a shield that only further emboldens their vitriol and verbal bile to denigrate others. It's for this reason that I find it incredible to think that H.G. Wells' novel, The Invisible Man, written in 1897, predicted what people would do if they had the power to be invisible, over 100 years before the dawn of the internet. Using the transformative villainy of anonymity inherent in H.G. Wells' novel and its various adaptations, which explore the idea that when a person is stripped of their identity and inflamed by their ego, the result would be a descent into savagery and barbarousness. The latest iteration capitalizes on this notion by tying into the genuine and problematic issue of domestic violence. I've got to admit, after Universal's catastrophic attempt to kickstart its dark universe with The Mummy, and the string of box office flops featuring its iconic monsters, I didn't think I'd be interested in seeing another adaptation. In my mind, these properties had been milked to death, and there wasn't a way to reinvent them for a contemporary audience. And then The Invisible Man was released, and I left the theatre feeling like an idiot. Directed by Leigh Whannel, who is no stranger to the horror genre, having worked with James Wan to create the Saw trilogy and the Insidious series of films, The Invisible Man is an intelligent, well-acted, and harrowing portrayal of a woman surviving her abuser. This new film is the best version of The Invisible Man we've had, and a wake-up call to Universal that to make a good movie, you don't need a star-studded cast or over $100 million to spend on mindless special effects. You need a good story, compelling characters, and $7 million. Moss is also fantastic as Cecilia, conveying the jittery nervousness of a woman whose entire life had been controlled and observed under a microscopic lens. You really feel for her character, and even if you aren't a woman or have never been involved in an abusive relationship, we've all been in a situation where we felt we've been controlled by someone, and this makes her position all the more relatable. However, Cecilia isn't a helpless victim. She's resourceful, cunning, determined, and unwilling to have her spirit broken, making her such an endearing character to follow, and a transformation at the end so triumphant. Put simply, The Invisible Man is about abuse, more specifically, surviving abuse, and we see this with Cecilia Cass, an architect who is trapped in an abusive relationship with Adrian Griffin, a pioneer in optics technology who controls every aspect of her life. While we never see what he did to her, we hear about their relationship from Cecilia, who recounts how he dictated what she ate, how she dressed, what she said, to finally taking a hold of how she thought. Instead of seeing the events play out through the perspective of the perpetrator, which has been done to death, the film's strength is that it unfolds through the eyes of Cecilia, a survivor that escapes captivity and is thrust into another position of helplessness. In fact, for some time, we, like Cecilia, begin to question whether he even existed, or whether he was created by her subconscious. This doubt is further fueled by the palpable silence in the movie, which in conjunction with the clever use of long static shots, makes us question whether somebody was really there or not, building tension in a way that would have made Hitchcock proud, and this is where the film's real horror resides. Cecilia is driven to the point of near insanity by Adrian, who she believes has faked his death and found a way to invisibly haunt her. This premise sets up the entire structure of the film, with Cecilia struggling to get her friends and family to believe her, while trying to formulate a plan to get rid of him.
My goal was, can I make empty spaces tense? Can I put the audience on edge just by pointing the camera down this empty corridor?
Never before has empty space been so scary, and Whannel exploits the malignancy of our imagination by using suggestive cinematography, like lingering in a direction for longer than is comfortable, or pointing to a chair to great effect. We can't see anything, and we don't know if there's anybody there, and this puts us in the same nerve-wracking shoes as our protagonist. The first 10 minutes of this movie is a testament to how silence can be used effectively. We see Cecilia carefully and methodically execute her escape plan, from drugging Adrian with diazepam, disabling the interior cameras in the home, to retrieving her possessions stored in a hidden compartment, all in silence. There is no dialogue to suggest who she is or why she's leaving, but the manner in which she leaves indicates that she's scared for her life and that her partner was possessive and abusive. It's not until she deviates from this plan by trying to free her dog, resulting in the car alarm being triggered, that we're hit with a swell of music which reinforces the visual message of this woman needs to leave as soon as possible. Cecilia's sister Emily then arrives as the getaway driver and whisks her away to safety as an enraged Adrian ran after them and smashed the car window with his hand, yelling that she can't leave him. Though the pair are able to escape, Cecilia drops a bottle of diazepam, which Adrian gets a hold of and uses against her later in the film. For the next 2 weeks, Cecilia lives in fear with her family friend James Lanier, a local cop, and his daughter Sydney, unable to venture too far past their front door, indicating that while she was physically free of him, her mind was still imprisoned by Adrian. It's not until she's summoned to a legal meeting with his brother Tom, where she's informed that Adrian had taken his life and gifted her with $5 million as a beneficiary of his will, that things start to look positive. However, the money is given to her on the condition that she doesn't commit any crimes or be declared legally insane, which is all a part of Adrian's grand plan. Trying to make the best of a bad situation, C opens up a savings account for Sydney and offers to put $10,000 a month into it as a way of thanking the Laniers for their hospitality. But over the next few days, Cecilia starts experiencing strange disturbances in the home, from a fire in the kitchen to strange footprints on a sheet. Assuming this to be the result of her damaged psyche at the hands of Adrian, James tells her that he would continue to haunt her if she let him. Moving on with her life, C attends a job interview but finds that her portfolio was empty before she collapses. Receiving a call from her GP, she's informed that her blood results showed that she had diazepam in her system. At the same time, she notices the bottle she had lost now stained with Adrian's blood in her bathroom, indicating that he had drugged her. Her doctor continues by stating she needed to come in and speak about another matter, her surprise pregnancy, but C is so distracted by the bottle that she doesn't hear this. Vindicated by what she thought was proof that Adrian was alive, she asks James to take her to see Tom and tells him that his brother was not only alive, but that he'd also found a way to become invisible. However, Tom rebukes this claim and insists that his brother's greatest strength was exploiting people's weaknesses to manipulate and control them, admitting that he too was a victim of his mind games. Cecilia's weakness is her love for her friends and family, and the Invisible Man starts exploiting this in the next act, where he begins tearing her life apart, beginning by sending an email to her sister using C's computer, which said that she wanted her to be dead, taking photos of her and Sydney as they slept, and hitting Sydney over the head and making her think that she was being assaulted by Cecilia. Alienated from her friends and family, and alone in the house, Cecilia dials Adrian's phone and finds it in the attic, picking it up as a message arrives saying "surprise," which is super important in understanding how the film ends. Sensing his presence near her, she throws a bucket of paint down the ladder, which reveals the Invisible Man for the first time. C tries to fend him off as best as she can, but she's thrown around the house by the imperceptible figure in one of the best sequences in the film. Determined to find proof that she wasn't crazy and that Adrian had indeed become invisible, Cecilia escapes and gets a ride to his property, where she finds a high-tech suit that used hundreds of cameras and small screens to bend light and make its wearer appear invisible. This is strikingly different from previous iterations of the Invisible Man, who underwent nonsensical biological transformations, with Whannel basing his interpretation on a more theoretically sound footing. This technological power also ties into the film's theme of control, with Adrian not only manipulating the minds of people, but going one step further by harnessing light and controlling it to manipulate the light of his life, C, and everything that she saw. Having found the proof she needed and concerned that he would appear at any moment, Cecilia hides the suit in the same compartment she'd used at the start and narrowly escapes the Invisible Man's grasp. Cecilia then meets with her sister over dinner and apologizes for not thanking her enough for what she had done, but insists that the email she'd received was not from her, but from Adrian. Furthermore, she'd finally found a way to prove that she was right, but before she can divulge the truth, the Invisible Man slices Emily's throat and puts the knife in Cecilia's hand, framing her for murder. With the damning email and apparent assault on Sydney used against her, C is sent to a psychiatric hospital where she's informed that she was pregnant with Adrian's child, despite having taken birth control to avoid this predicament. The explanation for this is revealed soon after this by Tom, who provides us with the first twist in the film, where he tells her that Adrian was aware of her actions and had switched her pills with placebos. Despite getting cut out from the money that was bequeathed to her after being charged with a criminal offense, Tom goes on to say that there was a way for her to get her life back. All that she would have to do is have the baby and get back together with Adrian, confirming what she had feared all along. And not only was Tom aware that his brother was still roaming the streets with sinister intent, but he'd also been actively involved in Adrian's grand plan to control her again. C defiantly says no to Tom's demands and pushes his paper off the desk, using this momentary distraction to steal one of his pens, which she would later use to fake her suicide and force the Invisible Man to reveal his presence. Adrian clearly thrives on controlling others. He's obviously manipulated his brother into working with him. He was likely very dominating at work, and he's enjoyed controlling every aspect of Cecilia's life prior to his staged death. Cecilia is the first person to combat his control by walking out on him, and it's this refusal to placate his god complex that motivates him even further to carry out his master plan. He also knows that she would never be free of him if she were to have his child, hence why he stops her as she tries to cut into her hand. Finally knowing where he was, C uses the pen to stab him multiple times, damaging his suit and making him go in and out of visibility. This commotion then attracts the attention of the guards, who try to subdue Cecilia, but are all taken out by the Invisible Man. With nothing left to lose, C pursues him through the parking lot in an epic cat-and-mouse chase. Unable to harm her as she was with child, the Invisible Man threatens to harm those that she loved and races over to the Laniers. After beating Sydney and her father James nearly to death, the Invisible Man is defeated by Cecilia, who uses a fire extinguisher to locate his position before shooting him multiple times. Much to the shock of C, James and Sydney, they don't find Adrian in the suit, but his brother Tom. Adrian's home is then stormed by tactical police, who find him tied up in the basement. James insists that Tom was behind the entire plot, but knowing full well of the types of psychological games Adrian loved to play, Cecilia refuses to believe this. And despite being freed thanks to the video evidence at the hospital, the suit Tom was found in, and witness accounts from James and Sydney. Wanting to get Adrian to at least confess to his crimes, Cecilia has dinner with him wearing a wire, while James listened from outside. As hard as she tries to get him to admit what he did, the stubborn, narcissistic sociopath refuses to do so, and even tries to use his fake charm to manipulate her once again. But as he does so, he reveals a major clue which indicated his culpability when he says that he knew her better than anybody else did, and how
that shouldn't come as a surprise.
The exact word he had texted her at the attic, and had later used during subsequent attacks. And in case the audience was still unsure about whether Adrian was guilty, Whannel holds on his face for a creepily long time as he smirked, believing that he'd finally manipulated her back to subservience. Adrian is a master manipulator, but he severely underestimates C's expertise in his manipulations. His suits are phenomenal advancements in optic technology, and he was a genius that attempted to bend reality to his will, but Cecilia sees right through him. She would never fall for his manipulations ever again, and realizing that he would never admit to his crimes or even leave her alone, C excuses herself from the table and retrieves the invisibility suit she'd hidden in the bathroom. Exploiting the camera angles in the home, she then uses a knife to slice his throat, just as he had done to her sister, making it appear as though he'd taken his own life on camera, before saying the word surprise, delivering his comeuppance by using his arsenal of tricks against him. Hearing the commotion live, James rushes in to help and is stopped by C, who gently puts her hand on his shoulder and reveals a duffel bag containing the invisibility suit. Given the hell that Adrian had put them through, and realizing that they would all never be safe if he continued living, James agrees to let it go down as a suicide. Unlike the previous two times that we saw Cecilia leaving the house, essentially fleeing for her life, now that she was finally both psychologically and physically free of Adrian's hold, Cecilia walks out of the house with strength, now empowered, having overcome the greatest obstacle imaginable. No murder is truly justified, but it's essential to consider that Cecilia's actions weren't merely an act of revenge or a triumph of liberation, but a service for the public good. Had Adrian not have been stopped, he would have gone after her friends again, and the next step for him after that would have been to start terrorizing other women. With the novel and its 1933 adaptation serving as conceptual inspirations, Whannel applies its core concepts to illuminate a horrendous injustice that has fallen on deaf ears until recently. Monsters genuinely exist, and though their power and immense wealth have afforded them a degree of anonymity to continue to wreak havoc in the shadows, when women accuse them of atrocities, we need to start listening to the victims and hold the perpetrators of abuse accountable. With that being said, I'm curious to hear what you guys thought about the film, and if you spotted any other Easter eggs that I might have missed, so please share these in the comments below. And a huge thanks to everyone who requested we explore the Invisible Man. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification icon to stay up to date on all my content, and if there's anything else you'd like to request, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film and Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.